Hey guys, and welcome to the video. Today we're just going to be going over some quick Urgot tips and tricks, as well as doing a basic rundown of all of his abilities. Let's start off with the passive Echoing Flames, or more commonly known as the Shotgun Knees. Makes it to where you have 6 little procs all around Urgot, and each fire off an enhanced auto attack. These autos pierce and hit in a cone, and they also hit for max health damage. Early game, these things have a massive cooldown of 30 seconds a leg. The late game, they're going to be going down to 2.5 seconds, making them your main source of damage on Urgot all around. The early game, it's really important to make sure you keep up at least 3 of them in the back by farming mostly with the front leg. Next up, we're going to talk about Urgot's Q, Corrosive Charge. What this ability does is pretty basic. It's just a little shootout that slows. Doesn't do much, however it does combo with your other skills. We'll get more back into this later. Urgot's W is Purge. When toggling it on, you'll start firing at an increased rate. It also locks, as you can see, shoots your shotguns really fast. This is the skill you're going to be maxing first, and is most of your DPS, as it lets you proc your passive as fast as possible in teamfights. There's a lot more tricks with this, and we're going to go ahead and level up. Once you get to level 9, this becomes a toggle instead of an ability, which lets you do quite a bit. The main trick is doing a 3 rotation and an auto. This will increase your DPS by about 50% and also helps you just CS as well. Next is E for Urgot is Disdain, which is just a short dash and a shield that also flips over targets. This is just your standard initiation tool, and we'll be going more about it in the tips and tricks section of this video. But it combos with your Q because you can get in range with the slow. Your main engage combo for the entire game will be this right here. Once you learn the E flash, Urgot becomes a whole lot scarier. Now to the fun part is his ultimate. You probably are here because you got hit by this. This ultimate is one of the scariest things in the game, being able to drag you in for a 25% HP execute and also do an AoE 1.5 second fear. The range on this is pretty massive, which allows you to catch fleeing targets and grind them all up. Now that we've got the main kit out of the way, we're going to go over basic combos. Your main combo in lane is typically going to be using your W, Q, and E and all in together. It's just kind of a face roll combo. One important thing to note about your W is if there's like minions, it's going to prioritize them first. It won't prioritize champions unless you hit them with a targeted ability, either your Q, E, or ult. If they're marked, the W will prioritize them first. Usually in lane, you're just trying to either catch an E if they walk up too far, or if you're getting ready to go aggressive, hit the Q, walk up, toggle on that W, and walk around. You're trying to proc as many shotguns as possible. A lot of the times, you're wanting to kind of get your rotation, like this, and then kind of back out, because the minions are going to start shooting down at you, and Urgot's not super tanky early game. The shield will let you tank those minions, but it lets you get out, get a good trade in. Once you get level 6, you're going to be pretty much doing the exact same combo, but right when you flip them, you're going to drop your ult on them. Dropping your ult is a free confirm because you know you got a stun there for a while. Alrighty, that's your main combos and your main techs. Now for the runes. I personally like running Press the Attack, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, and Last Stand. Reason for these runes are pretty simple. PTA just works really good with Urgot because, I mean, watch this. Already procced. Helps you out on damage early game, which can let you kind of fight these tougher champs, and it also just scales well. Triumph, obviously, just because you're a bruiser. Even though Urgot does have some mana issues, it's not nearly enough to run Presence of Mind. Going down, you get Legend Tenacity. Urgot doesn't really need attack speed because he's mostly going to be using W and W cancels, like this. But that's why we take Tenacity over it. And plus, you're a big boy. I mean, look at Urgot's hitbox. You're going to get hit by a lot of CC, so you need to be able to get through it. Last Stand, again, just because you're a bruiser. Coup de grace is not as necessary as Urgot. Even though it does help you secure executes, you do have an execute. So once they get low, you're typically going to be killing them anyways. Having Last Stand just lets you get those big fights. Now that the runes are done, as far as like your little extra stats, I typically like to go double adaptive, and then 1 for whatever matchup, either armor or magic resist. For summoners on Urgot, I typically just take Flash and Teleport. You can also go Ghost Teleport or Flash Ghost. I just like having teleport for the playmaking and flash for the playmaking as well. Now let's talk about the builds. I'm going to go ahead and teleport back to base. For your starting item, I typically recommend going Cole into most matchups. If you think you can win the matchup or it's going to be really tough like a Darius, you can take something like a Doran's Blade, Doran's Shield. But Cole works really well on an Urgot because the 3 health back per hit toggles on each proc of your W, which gives you some pretty solid life rip while also helping you scale up. In most laning phases, that's all Urgot's looking to do anyways. As far as your items, after you get your starter, your core items are obviously your boots, which are typically going to be Mercury Treads or Plated Steel Caps. No really other option here, just take it usually for your lane matchup. As for your main items, you want to either start Ravenous or Titanic Hydra. Titanic Hydra is just better right now in Urgot, so I'd recommend taking it. Now, for your next item, you can either take a Mythic, or you can take Black Cleaver. Honestly, Black Cleaver is just the strongest Mythic sometimes in Urgot. If you're winning, just take Black Cleaver. Now, for the Mythic choices on Urgot, you've got quite a good selection here. Right now, the best ones are probably going to be Frostfire Gauntlet and Gore Drinker. There's a reason they're favorited. Gore Drinker is good if there's 3 or more melee champions on the enemy team. You want to be more bruisery, while your Frostfire Gauntlet is just going to make Urgot tankier in every way. It also gives you that slow field, which allows you to stick on targets a lot better. Typically, this is going to be what you run. As for the other mythics, these are just for cheesier builds, or if you're doing like mid lane Urgot. Mid lane Urgot likes Prowler's Claw just to be more like an assassin. Kim Tank can sometimes work if you're just having to be a pure engage for your team, but it's pretty weak right now. I think it's going to get buffed soon. Kraken Slayer is kind of a meme. It doesn't really work on Urgot anymore, and I wouldn't recommend building it. And Eclipse is just a more safe version of Prowler's Claw. Now that you picked up your Mythic, or you picked up the Black Cleaver first, go ahead and grab whichever one you didn't grab. And with these core 3 items, you're just going to start filling in the blanks. Their magic damage is already starting to knock up. Make sure you go ahead and grab a Spirit Visage. It's by far his best one right now. Gargoyle's Stoneplate also is usable. It's really good if you need to make sure you get your fears off. Because what you do, right, you'd send out your ult, and as you're reeling it in, you'd prop that just to make sure it goes through. If not, though, just take Spirit Visage. It's going to give you good healing, good shielding. It just works with Urgot really well. For your last item at this point, typically you're going to be getting Thornmail. Just because Thornmail is such a good item in general right now, it's going to help you shut down a lot of these heavy healing teams. Death Dance is a really good item on there, but if you're wanting to take this, you might have to sub out something like that Black Cleaver, and it's honestly just better in most cases. With that, it's typically the build you're going to be seeing on Urgot, but for some variations, we're going to talk about these damage/ahead items. If you have some of these, instead of taking Black Cleaver in that 2nd or 3rd slot, you can sometimes take Hullbreaker. This is if you're winning pretty hard and you want the split, or you just think splitting is the win condition. Realize you're not committed to only splitting after you get this item. You can group with your team, but that is what helps you out a lot. Taking Chimpunk Chainsword is only if you're just completely stomping the enemy. You can take that over Thornmail. Typically this isn't going to be happening. Same for a lot of these. Guardian Angel is just something you would take over Thornmail if you're stomping and healing's not an issue, and you're wanting to protect that bounty on your head from the big carry you're undoubtedly getting every game. Now for Blade of the Rune King, this is more of a meme item. This is just if you're completely stomping and you're wanting to flex on some tanks up top lane. Other than that, though, just kind of stay away from it. Cerelia's Grudge is a really funny item. I don't think it's the best, but it does have its place. You would run this instead of Black Cleaver, and it's pretty much for when they have really hardcore tanks, and you're wanting to just permanently keep them in place and just rip through that armor. Your shotguns are pretty much always going to be hitting for full damage, and you will also be perma-slowing them. Because one thing a lot of people forget is while Cerelia's Grudge works on abilities, they think, oh, Q's already slow, that doesn't help. E's a stun, that doesn't help. Ult's a slow, that doesn't help. But they forget, your W technically is an ability. This means you can't really see it because of the Frostfire, but you are actually permanently slowing the enemy. You can see it right there. So the W does make you very oppressive. This is good if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of mobility, but they're very tanky. Cerelia's Grudge can be a really nice niche last item. That's your main build path. As far as what potions and consumables to go, you want to swap over to Scanner sometimes in the late game, just so you can get some maybe cheeky picks by hiding in brushes. Other than that, you typically just want to keep your yellow wards for vision control. As far as potions, Elixir of Iron or Elixir of Wrath. If you're snowballing pretty hard and you just want to keep snowballing, go ahead and take that Wrath for the physical vamp. But in almost every situation, just go ahead and grab Elixir of Iron and finish out being a tanky monstrosity. With Elixir of Iron in your final build, you're usually going to end up with somewhere near 4,000 HP. However, if you look back on the page, you'll notice we have Overgrowth and Conditioning. This is going to be what makes you an absolute monster. Overgrowth will easily get you over that 4k HP mark, and Conditioning will add that extra armor magic resist on, which let me just go ahead and do that. And then we'll add in my levels as well, just to kind of show you what you're going to be looking at late game. With this very tanky Urgot build, but it still has plenty of damage, you're going to be looking at 240 armor, 134 magic resist, 262 AD, 4,500 health. It's pretty ridiculous. And if you think, oh no, I've gone tank Urgot, I've got no damage, allow me to reassure you, you are not lacking in the damage department. With this build, you're still going to do some insane damage. And if you notice, man, that's pretty. I will say it's a little glitchy. Let me turn that off. But most of your damage is coming from your shotgun knees anyways, with their percent health damage. So with the Black Cleaver being able to proc incredibly quickly, and your Titanic Hydra giving you some on-hit, you're insane in the late game. Plus your E is going to be giving you a 700 HP shield every 8 seconds. At this point, you're pretty much unstoppable. You can carry the game almost by yourself. Just know that at the end of the day, you're not a super flashy champion like Darius or Aurelia, so you might have a hard time 1v5ing unless you're insanely fed. So make sure you do play with your team overall and contest big objectives. Your ult can usually secure these with a big fear, and you can win the game for your team that way. With that all being said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully see you again soon.